Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Economic Development Committee meeting. Being streamed live, so please be aware of that on your cameras and what you're doing and everything, and what you say. If you can keep yourselves on mute unless you want to say something, and please use your yellow hand so that I know that you've indicated you want to speak. The way I'll do it is the top one will go first, so it might not be, you might not think you've put your name down second. It's whatever's on my screen at the top will go first, if that's all right. Okay, that takes us on then to item 1, apologies for absence.
None, Chairman. We're a full house. We're just waiting on Councillor Brailsford.
Yeah, who's going to join us as soon as he can get in. Okay, declarations of interest of members and officers as to the party whip. Thank you. Declarations of intention to record the meeting. We are being recorded anyway, so if there is anything on here, you can always request it. Okay, minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of January 2021. Are we happy it's a true reflection?
Move them, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody got anything to say on that? No, excellent. Chairman's report. Right, here's where we have to go out and come back in and go out again. I do apologise because it's just the way working from remote. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Despite ongoing lockdown, we have continued to support residents and businesses. We now have a national roadmap and work ongoing to the Newark and Sherwood roadmap as we start a lifting lockdown. Lifting communities and lifting businesses, more on this to follow such that we are ready to welcome back residents and activity on our high streets. We have secured significant funding support, whether it be the Newark Towns Fund, the Places to Ride scheme, which is an exempt item, or the completion of the land deal of Ollerton Hall. We also now have a raft of new opportunities to consider on the back of the Chancellor's budget earlier this month. From the Community Renewal Fund to the Levelling Up Fund to the Community Ownership Fund. Lots of funds coming forward. I continue to thank the officers and members that have been working really well during this COVID to make sure that we continue, and that's one of the big things really. You know, we've continued to carry on working despite all the restrictions that we've been under. So well done to all the officers and members actually for your support and your activities. Okay, that takes us on then to item 6, which is the forward plan. Matt Lamb, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm sure you'll note that there's 3 additional items I'd recommend that we add to the forward plan on the back of the agenda that you're going to consider. So the first is an update on the local development framework. Secondly, an update on the Newark Towns Fund. And finally, an update on the additional funding opportunities, which is one of the items on the agenda later.
Okay, any comments? Neil? I've got a couple of Neils, haven't I? Sorry, Councillor Mitchell.
The first one, yeah. Just realised there's not an update scheduled there for the development that's been looked at between the Hallam Road and Retford Road estate. And we also now have an update scheduled for the planning around the Ollerton High Street, the Ollerton Town Centre, revitalisation, the Forest Centre, that kind of work. So are there any dates that they might be coming back soon?
Matt?
Yeah, that's a fair question, actually, Councillor Mitchell. So I'd probably suggest we take them together because they're one package. So, yeah, if we had that as an update for the June meeting, of the 2, the Ollerton High Street is most advanced. But again, I can pick that up in the June submissions.
Are you happy, Neil? Roger Bain, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The second consultation period on the residential parking standards ended on the 12th of March. It, I presume, comes back to this committee. I'm not sure whether this committee can then formally adopt it or whether it has to go to full council, but certainly it needs to come back here, and therefore I would hope that that should, well, I would have thought that should be on the forward plan as well.
Matt?
Yeah, that's fine, Chairman. We will bring it back anyway for adoption. So yeah, I will add that on, hopefully in June.
Okay.
Yeah, can I just double check through you, Chairman? Am I right, Matt, that it can be adopted by the Economic Development Committee, or does it have to be a full council? And I ask that question because that therefore means that it wouldn't be determined until end of June, I think possibly middle of July, whereas if it could be this committee, then it can be done in the middle of June.
I'm afraid I'll have to defer to Matthew on the call. Matthew, can you just confirm for me?
Yes, certainly, Matt. Yes, it's this committee that would adopt the SPD.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Matt, I've got something to say. Oh, sorry, Maureen, you go first.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just that my hand is not working. It's flashing and then it's going off. Okay. I see tonight we've got an update on the A46 Northern Bypass consultation. Are we intending to have that on the agenda for discussion every time, or is it going on the forward plan?
I think the best on the forward plan, Maureen, because if you discuss it every time, it might not be actually anything to discuss. So I think we'll bring it here as and when there's something to talk about. I think that's.
I think you'll find that there's things to talk about on a regular basis.
Yeah, probably, but yeah. Right, Matt, I've got a few things about it really. In terms of, obviously, we've got the Towns Fund, and you're going to give an update on that. I take it all the projects that go on the Towns Fund are going to come from economic development, are they? So will they be going on to the forward plan?
Yeah, my intention at the minute, Councillor, would be to do it as part of the updates rather than separate projects. And of course, depending on which project it is, which I'll pick up later. So where it's a council-led project, it will come both here and the Policy and Finance Committee, whereas if it is a third-party project, it would just come here. So at the minute, when I refer to Towns Fund update, that is also individual project updates. I wasn't proposing to split those out at this time.
Brilliant. Okay, is everybody happy with that? Yeah, lovely, thank you. That takes us then on to item 7, Visitor Economy Recovery Plan, which is Richard Uthwaite, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Members recently approved the refresh of the visitor economy strategy that set out our ambitions for the district's visitor economy going forward. So I thought it'd be helpful to set out here in this report our plans, the practical steps we're taking on that first step, which is essentially supporting the district's visitor economy in its recovery from the COVID pandemic in this calendar year. So it's a short to medium term plan with some real tangible outcomes that sit under that refreshed visitor economy strategy. And I think it's very much got a focus on the opportunities that will be coming forward in the sense that members may well have heard it in the media today and recent days. There's a lot of debate around foreign holidays and whether people should be taking them or having staycations. And I think the evidence on the ground is that actually a lot of members of the public are voting with their feet and booking staycations in this country. And as vaccinations increase throughout the population, those bookings of domestic UK properties seem to be increasing in line with the vaccination rollouts. And I think as time goes on, people will increasingly look to spend their summer here and possibly defer foreign travel till later in the year or even next year. So there's some real opportunities there. And what I set out in this report is essentially our 4 main pillars that you'll be familiar with from that visitor economy strategy. In brief, those are relationship building, and that's providing a lot of the advice, guidance and support to our partners, which of course is a lot of what we've been doing in the last year throughout the pandemic. There's also things like the business resilience support. We're including accommodation providers in that, financial support and business support. to those providers who have obviously had such a tough time of it in the last year. And working with partners at national level, such as Visit England, on wider initiatives like the Explorers Road, which is being relaunched at the beginning of next month. So we're very much a key destination on that route. In fact, 3 destinations. We've got Newark, Southwell and Sherwood Forest all as destinations on that route, alongside some of the big hitters, if you like, the likes of York and Durham. So we're in good company there. The second pillar is destination development. So this is where we'll continue to take forward development of the product, the visitor offer, with things like our Places to Ride at Thoresby scheme that's on the agenda, further on the agenda this evening. Forest Corner master planning to improve the visitor experience there at Sherwood Forest, and things like the Cultural Heart of Newark project that's part of the Towns Fund TIP programme, but also helping attractions and businesses as well, using our role as place ambassador and using some of our market insight and intelligence to actually help attractions and businesses themselves develop in a way that will be successful. The third pillar is destination marketing. At the moment, here we are on the 24th of March, it's still a stay-at-home message. That will, of course, very shortly be evolving into a stay local message, where people will be able to go out for days out, enjoy a change of scenery, some much needed fresh air, exercise, very good for people's well-being, but it will still be a stay local message. So we will be encouraging people to move around the district in a way that is safe and responsible, but we won't yet be promoting overnight stays. That will come a bit later, from the 17th of May. And at that point, the message will evolve further into the full staycation message, where we will seek to attract people from further afield. Again, of course, assuming that it's safe to do so and permitted within the regulations, being led, of course, by data rather than dates. But that's very much the expectation, and we will start preparing those campaign materials to maximise the opportunity that presents itself there. And the fourth pillar that we'll be taking forward is that visitor insight, knowledge and research. So we're building continually, looking at what's working, what's maybe not working quite so well, sharing that with our partners and stakeholders, and enabling them to, again, enhance the visitor offer by knowing more about the customers, what their expectations and needs are. So I think in the appendix there, we've also got an outline of the marketing plan for the year, going right up to Christmas campaign at the end of the year. I very much see this as a work in progress that will evolve over the year. Hopefully, we know where we're going in terms of the lifting lockdown roadmap, but we will at all times remain flexible and adaptable to any changes within that schedule. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, you're on mute.
I didn't know I was on mute. I don't know who put me on mute, because I didn't. Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Very much welcome this report, support it, and we'll be voting for it. Richard, can I just ask one question for clarification? Paragraph 323, reference is made to the £2,000 grant out of the £300,000 business resilience programme. It then goes on to talk in terms of specialist business advice and support, those who qualify. Can I check that that £2,000 isn't to pay for that support? The support comes on top of the £2,000. I think that's the case. I'm just conscious there was an element of perhaps not so much confusion, that's the wrong word, but a need for clarity in the statement there.
Yes, Councillor Blaney, that's my understanding too. It's in addition to the support. The grant is up to £2,000 with the support and guidance on things like digital marketing and so on top of that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Neil Mitchell next, please.
Yeah, as Roger said, welcome this report. I'm really happy to see it. I think obviously it's been a really tough time, but it's interesting. There are some nice positives, I think, in there, particularly around 3.2.2 when it talks about actually strengthening our relationships with the local tourist providers and the help we've been able to give them with providing accurate information and the business resilience support. I think actually going to come out of it with a lot of benefits. And I think it's a testament to Richard and his team, the work they've done before we ended up with this in this situation, that I think we're in a much better position to weather this, and the local providers are, and come out of it. And I think the plans you've got for making best use of the time through March, April, May, June leading up to the lifting, really, really happy to see. And I think they look great. I think they'll put us in a good position to actually come out strong from this.
Thank you, Neil. I've got Maureen first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good report, Richard. But I did mention some while back that not only are we going to be good for going and cycling at Thoresby and Newark and 1 or 2 Edwinstowe, but we also have 2 very wonderful, environmentally beautiful areas called Langford Lowfields and Besthorpe Wildlife Trust, of which you can get to on the Sustrans route and on the Trent Vale Trail route. And I think you should be thinking seriously of encouraging in your marketing to encourage people to do that. We've had a huge amount of people using the Trent Vale Trail. Certainly the new bit that we've achieved from Langford to Besthorpe, but because it takes you through the Wildlife Trust, and it's been absolutely well appreciated, and I think a lot of other people would enjoy it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Maureen. I think, Richard, you can look at that then, yeah?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dobson. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We're continually expanding that section on Get Active with more walks and cycle trails and things, and those are some very good suggestions. I'll make sure they're included as you go up through, like I say, Langford and Collingham, some really nice areas to explore just outside of Newark that people may not be aware of. So thank you.
Can I just ask a question before I pass on to Penny? Are we still talking to Sally Outram regarding, because wasn't she helping us? She writes books on walks, doesn't she? And she's doing a lot in Nottinghamshire, and I was hoping that she'd be doing some around in the Newark and Sherwood area. Is she still being engaged with?
Yes, she is, Chairman. Yep. If members have a look at the Get Active section on Visit Newark, there's a series of walks there that Sally did for us. She created those and did the photography as well. And judging by the analytics on the website, they're proving quite popular. Well, I guess lockdown has helped. People have been looking for places they can get out and about and explore. So yes, she's been useful in that sense.
Excellent, Richard. I think she's got a big following herself, so it's actually quite good using her to do the writing as well, isn't it? With her name by it. Penny.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, really, I'm going to just echo what Councillor Mitchell has just said. I welcome this report. It hasn't been a good time, has it, for tourism and the hospitality trade, but I think it's testament to Richard's team that the work that's gone on before in the relationship building, in the tag meetings, has done a tremendous amount of good. We had a successful tag meeting, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, many attendees, and they all spoke positively of his team, and the support and the financial support that they have given has been really good. So thank you, Richard, and can you convey my thanks to your extended team? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Penny. I think it's really interesting that the Sherwood and the Southwell tourism groups, the liaison and the relationship being built is really good. I think Neil does a cracking job over in Sherwood, and Penny, you do a great job in Southwell as well, and it's fantastic. It's just we're just lacking the same sort of relationship with Newark, which is a bit disappointing, really. Maybe that's something you can work on, Richard. You know, they need to come on board, you know, rather than sort of do nothing alone. They need to come on board and let us help them promote the things that they've got. You know, it's very disappointing, very disappointing. Anybody got anything else to say? Okay, the recommendations are on page 22. Do I have a seconder, please? Penny. Thank you. All in favour? And well, anybody against? First of all, just go against or abstain. Any against? Any abstentions? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, then the next item is page 26. That's Matthew Norton. Do you want to introduce it, Matthew?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So, as you know, over the past year, we've been working towards getting a new open space assessment and then a strategy developed. There have been a few delays along the way due to COVID impacting on the company that's doing the work for us, but we have now got into a position where we've got a draft open space strategy being finalised. We've done some initial consultation. We started some initial consultation with parishes and ward members to effectively sense check the results to ensure that what we thought we knew about the areas and what the consultants have looked at is indeed correct. So we've engaged with as many parishes as we can in a series of meetings, and that they're now looking at what the study says and feeding back, so that when we finally publish it, we'll hopefully have a very good sound document. The report really is in two parts. It's an assessment of current provision based on the typology set out at 3.1, and then as an audit of what's there, how good it is and what improvements could be made. And then secondly, that's turned into a kind of a look at what could be done with that open space through a series of strategic recommendations. I think, interestingly, coming out of the initial consultation events with the ward members and the parish councils is, I suppose, a question for us really is, well, you know, what's this study for? I think we understand from the district council's point of view the importance of understanding our open space, both from a planning point of view and also in terms of investment for our own sites. But I think it's fair to say that the parishes are saying to us, well, we understand, you know, what this is saying. What do we need to do? How can we use this study? And how can we as the district council support us? So I suppose once we go out for consultation, we need to consider how we implement this. And I think that's reflected in the financial implications section, where we say we'll need to give some thought to how this is implemented, because clearly, whilst we have a big stake in open space in parts of the district, most often it's not the district council that runs or maintains them, and parish councils are a key part of that. But of course, so there's other key stakeholders like the National Trust, the RSPB and the Forestry Commission. So that's an important thing to consider. So effectively, once we've done the sense check exercise, we want to go out for some public consultation in the summertime to spread that out wider to various consultation groups and people. So the report's really asking for permission to do that. I think one thing just to say is that I know that not all members were able to come to the session relevant to their parish, and they may want to catch up on what the study is before it goes out for public consultation. So I've asked Helen to arrange a kind of a couple of mop-up sessions, so any members that didn't come along to the sessions may still want to come along and have an overview of it. So that we'll send out that invite in the next couple of days, I think. And of course, also I think there are 3 members who don't have one of the major settlements in their ward, so they wouldn't have come to any of the sessions. So the recommendation is that the progress is noted and that committee allow the consultation to be undertaken when the document's finalised.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from anybody? Maureen?
Yes, unfortunately, I couldn't make that meeting, and I apologise, and I didn't send my apologies. So yes, I'm one of them, Matthew, that could do with a leg up, if you like. Thank you for this. It's good document, Matthew. But what I would like to just pass comment on, if it hasn't already been passed, is that an awful lot of the Collingham ward is very small villages, small hamlets, small villages, who really have very small precepts. So I would like you to look at, I mean, one or two of them have got some very tiny play areas, but they are looking for perhaps updating those play areas because they've done a local plan in their village or in conjunction with 2 or 3 other villages. Like, for instance, Harby, Thorney and Wigsley have done a community-led plan. And Thorney would like to update their play area, but they don't have a huge amount of pennies. So I think they could do with some assistance. How you do it, I don't know, but you have a look at it. And if there is any spare pennies to assist them with or point them in the right direction for grants, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. I've got Roger next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Couple of points. Again, like Maureen, welcome the report. I particularly note the bottom of page 26 that sports pitches are covered by a separate playing pitch strategy. And I think when we go out to consultation, it's important we emphasize that point so we don't get responses worrying about the number of football pitches we're short in this location or that location. More generally, though, Matthew has just highlighted a point that I was aware had come back from some of the parish town councils who were consulted, namely, very interesting, but what's it for and how is it taken forward? So, yeah, this is going to be an open space assessment, but I do think we need to give more thought to the strategy that comes out of that open space assessment, and especially, as Matthew has alluded to, how we can work in partnership with the larger town and parish councils to help address either enhancements or expansions of the open space in their areas, and what sorts of grant funding might be available to support that. Because otherwise, we ought to be honest with ourselves and with the town and parish councils that what we are doing is assessing the open space we have across Newark and Sherwood. That may be useful as a planning database, if you like, when we are considering planning applications. But if it is going to be a strategy, I think we need more flesh on the bones than perhaps we're indicating is the case at present. Thank you, Chairman.
I'll bring Matthew Norton in there to respond to that first, please.
Yes, I think that's I think a very fair point that Councillor Blaney makes, Chairman. I think one of the things is that some of the changes that could be made are not the kind of dramatic things that could happen. Some of the recommendations around climate change and things like that really refer to kind of management practices rather than significant change. So, for instance, in the discussion at Farndon, there was a discussion about, well, could the cemeteries have a secondary role in terms of how they're managed for biodiversity, for instance? And in fact, actually, the parish clerk confirmed there that they're actually already thinking about doing that. So some of these things, the recommendations may be significant, but they may not be, and so so there's a range of things that can be done and action that can be taken by landowners that manage open space. But certainly, yes, some of the significant things like this open space is maybe identified as not being well used or not of good quality, and there may be other better ones nearby. Could it be used for something else? Well, yes, if it could be turned into an allotment, then there's obviously a capital outlay, and there's got to be a discussion about how that happens. But there are a range of recommendations that can be applied.
Lovely. You've switched your camera off, Matthew. I don't know how it's happened, but you have. Yeah, I've got Neil Mitchell next, please.
Just a quick little bit of feedback. So I attended one of the sessions, and it was very, very interesting, very informative, and I think this assessment will give us a very useful baseline to look at our current situation with the open spaces, and then assess sort of potential impact of any future changes. I mean, for Ollerton in particular, it called out some areas on Hallam Road Estate as being valuable. We're going to take away a large piece of open space potentially with a new development. So how that affects the resident, I think this definitely informs that. It's a very nice counterpoint to that. One of the bits of feedback we gave in the meeting I think worth saying here is that some of the concepts are quite difficult, I think, to understand. So it'll be interesting to see the final document that comes forward to go out for consultation. The concepts around the difference between a quality of an environment and its potential value were fairly straightforward, but some of the methodology about how they modelled potential future changes, I think was quite nuanced and maybe a little bit difficult to grasp if you're not having a presentation. So very much looking forward to seeing the final document that comes forward, to see whether that's kind of accessible for the wider public.
Yeah, thank you for that, Neil. I've got Lee next, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, Lee. Sorry, just a minute. Problem. Matthew, did you want to come back on that, or is that a legacy hand?
Hang on a minute. Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking of unmuting myself there. Yes, no, I did want to just say that, yes, I appreciate that. And I think we're going to have to think about very carefully how we communicate this. I think there'll be the document, and then we'll probably have to do some kind of accompanying material that's a bit more user friendly, I think. And you're quite right, if you hadn't had the presentation, you maybe not get that. So I think that's something we've definitely got to consider.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Matthew. Now, Lee, sorry, Lee.
Thank you. No, I'm thankful for this report. I just want to make a request, really, for the Ollerton mop-up, because unfortunately I was unable to attend the first one. Could we have it a little later in the day, please? It's just because I work nights and 10 o'clock in the morning wasn't very good for me. So yeah, that's just my request, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt Lamb, did you want to come in?
Yeah, there's just a couple of important points there. It's probably worth both re-emphasising and picking up. So firstly, and again, when this goes out to the public consultation, it's not lost on me that people don't think by typology of open space. Certainly, if I'm taking my children out, I don't think, let's go to some semi-natural grassland today. We'll go to the park. So I think there's some common sense and narrative that we probably need to apply when we're looking at objective data in a subjective way. And I fully understand the point that Councillor Mitchell makes there in that regard. So we will think through that. And again, just on the point on what this means and what's it for, I think we do need to look carefully at how that is funded for the future, but equally how this document will enable others to lever funding in. Because if that's strategically identified as an aspiration and a detail, that's something that can really help moving forward. So again, just thanks to the team, a massive piece of work and therefore massive implications that run from it, which we can't lose sight of. So I hear that loud and clear, and we will look to do something perhaps slightly different with the comms around this and work with the comms team to be able to not simply do a dry piece of consultation where you log onto a website and read a document.
Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. I think I'll put it in layman terms, some of what you just said there. Yeah, one of the big factors for this document is actually for planning. Yeah, so that when a developer comes to Newark and Sherwood District Council and say, we want to do this, yeah, we use this document to say, yeah, you can, but you need to provide this. And that's really important part of it. So it's not just about where the deficiencies are, it's giving us the strength and the ability to say to the developers, okay, yeah, this is a good site, but you'll need to do this to mitigate some of the green space or to mitigate whatever. And it gives us that power to refer back to and less chance of them worming their way out of it effectively. So it's not just about saying where we're deficient, it's about giving us the power to work towards getting rid of those deficiencies. And I think, you know, that's going to be a difficult message to get over to the public, because the public by nature will look at the red dots that says we're deficient here, what's the council going to do about it? Well, this report is what the council's going to do about it, because that's given us the power to do it. So that makes sense, does it, Matt Lamb, sorry, and Matthew Norton? Yeah, because that is, to me, that is a big factor in terms of what this document, the power of this document, if you like. Yes, it informs us as a council. Yes, it does. Yeah, and we can look at where we have our deficiencies, but it also gives us the power to our elbow to get some money to do that. Okay, recommendations are on page 29. A seconder, please. Penny? Yeah, anybody against? I'll take that as unanimous then. Thank you very much. Okay, item on page 30, and it's item 9, Matt Lamb, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So this is an update on the Newart's Towns Fund. I'm delighted to report that we're not now continuing to wait month on month, as I'm afraid I've reported in the past. So you will have seen as part of the Chancellor's announcement that Newark was one of a number of places nationally that was announced as successful in its bid. I've put a plan in there just to try and set that into some regional context for us. And you will see that across Nottinghamshire, there are currently 2 towns that have had funding announced. So ourselves and Mansfield, who have been awarded 12.3 million. So our award was the full allocation of 25 million. And just a reminder of process from here, because today's a key date actually in that overall process. So we have to submit today heads of terms to the government, and that's what we are issuing later on after this meeting. We, from there, then need to develop business cases for each of the projects. So as I alluded to earlier, all of the projects will come through this committee, but they will also, for projects that we are involved with or leading on or indeed on our land, will also come via the Policy and Finance Committee. Just a brief update on some of the projects, and again, I won't talk you through them all. Just an update on where we are at. So in terms of the Newark Gateway site, which is where the first 2 projects on that table at 2.3 of the agenda, we continue to progress at pace with the design work there, and we will be bringing to this committee and to the P&F committee in the June cycle an update on the IASTE development and looking to sign heads of terms with them for delivery on the former livestock market site. So a number of you may have picked up in the local press that the International Air and Space Training Institute is now live. So what that basically means is college courses are running from this September together with partners at the RAF, Aviation 360 and the Lincoln College Group. So a number of schools have been targeted, and that is the 16 to 18 piece, with a view that as students progress through that, if they do want to stay on to go to the degree course, which you may recall was in piloting, engineering and ground crew provision, they are able to do so at the new facility at a degree level. And I'm sure you remember the detail of that. So principally that is 60 to 70% of training physically on the new facility, with the remaining being at your finishing school, which in other words to us is the relevant military or civil air base. So I should bring an update on that to the June meeting. In terms of the former M&S building at 32 Stodman Street, again, there'll be an all-member briefing. Sorry, let me rephrase that. There will be an economic development member briefing with all members invited in terms of that project. So we've been working with the architects team and the various statutory consultees as part of that process. And I do know that any members of the planning committee will have already have seen that with your regulatory hats on as part of that process. In terms of the Newark Construction College expansion, that is on track to complete next month. So again, social distancing and COVID restrictions allowing, we should be able to get some images, and I would hope in due course be able to visit that facility to actually see from the outside in. So there's a number of glazed areas where you can actually see the students working in the workshop and delivering on the outputs and aspirations that we've got. Likewise, there's been a start on site at the YMCA, the Community and Activity Village, and additional to that, they've also received some good news that, again, through the Places to Ride submission, they've also been awarded capital grant to enhance their cycling facilities, in addition to the phase 2 project, which you may recall was the delivering the labs, the music and art space, the conferencing, the function facilities, and the Olympic-sized climbing wall. So who knows, we may in due course have an Olympian that's trained in Newark as part of that process, which would be great. So You'll see in terms of the recommendations, therefore, that we're seeking really for you to note the process from here in terms of the business case development and moving these projects forward over the next 12 months with the funding to follow that. To note and welcome, hopefully, the heads of terms being signed today with central government, and to note progress on the individual projects, only some of which I've set out for you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, before I put this up to questions, I see people laughing about the fact that the heads of terms have got to be signed straight after this meeting. I think one of the things that's going to be happening a lot through this Towns Fund is moving quickly, because we're given deadlines by the government which don't always fit in with our council agenda. So I'm pre-warning people that there's going to be a lot of situations where we're going to have to make decisions quick and get on with it, and so Matt can get on with his job and keep us going. Yeah, so you know, I plead for your patience on that. It's through the normal thing. We will consult with the opposition groups to make sure that they're happy before we go ahead. But it's, you know, sometimes we will not have time to have for it to come to our committee. Yeah, but where it can, it will. So we won't be, you know, not bringing it here if it can, but sometimes it won't. Anybody got any? Oh, and one other thing is, I mean, obviously this is fantastic news, amazing news, and I think the whole of the district is going to benefit from this, not just Newark. The IASTI, I think their website's up and running, IASTI Newark or Newark IASTI, where people can apply to be part on them courses. So, you know, get that message out there. It's a great opportunity for everybody within the district. So that to me is a fantastic thing. And you know, if anybody complains about us getting it, you know, you know, there was all complaining about us having the worst social mobility in the country. Yeah, and there was all complaining about us for that. Actually, they instantly forgot about that when we put in for this bid and got it. Yeah, and this is going to improve the mobility of everybody within Newark and Sherwood district area. I've got Peter Harris first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to declare an interest, but I have employed aerospace graduates who are looking for posts, and their first post has been with me, not in aerospace industry, however, it's allied. One of the issues that we face is trying to train up adults in terms of the new technologies. There's a reference to it with the Training Institute, but nothing more. It seems to be focused on 16 to 18-year-olds. So I just wondered if something can be done.
Yeah, good question. Matt?
Yeah, if I can pick that up, Chairman. So you're right. There are 3 current work strands which form part of the IASTA, but there are a number of others that will follow. So the 3 current ones, you've got the pre-16 education space, the 16 to 18 and the post-18. And that does include adult as part of that. Clearly, there is then supply chain issues that you can look at within those 3 industries and 3 disciplines that will be covered. So yes, I'm quite happy, Councillor Harris, to share with you separately, and indeed to do a briefing with members in due course. I think will probably be helpful with the Lincoln College Group, Aviations 360, the RAF, and the industry partner that I'm afraid I can't still name publicly, but the industry partner, to be able to run through what that looks like, what that means, and how we hope to develop this, because this is a 3rd step, not the last step as far as we're concerned.
Are you happy with that, Peter? Yeah, I think it's fortunate.
Yes, yes, Chairman. It's about the future. It's about adult education, which the Lincolnshire College seems to have forgotten about at the moment.
Yeah. We'll be prodding them, don't worry. I think one of the good things you'll be able to organise, Matt, once it's built and up and running, is a visit by the committee to go and have a look round. Because it's not far, is it? We won't have to book transport, that's for sure. And I think it'd be really interesting to see the sort of workshops and technology they've got there, really. Maureen.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I take you to page 31 under heads of terms? Could I ask why Newark Police Station relocation is on heads of terms, bearing in mind how we helped provide the funding to build the police station many years ago.
Matt.
Yes, I can, Councillor. So that was one of the projects that was identified in the town investment plan that was submitted, and we so that's emerged through both the town's board and through the previous presentations that we did as part of this. The easiest way to describe it, and forgive me, I'm going to use a terrible strap line, but it's an easy way to describe it, is through the police rationalisation, the theory being less square feet, more bobbies on the beat. So this actually will lead to more frontline services in return for a reduction of square footage. But more importantly for us, it does two other things. So firstly, it enables co-location with our existing services, our antisocial behaviour teams, and work across. But it also allows the release of that site in conjunction with, so not alongside, but cognizant of, the former Orchard School site as part of a much wider site to contribute to the town centre. So yeah, sorry, Councillor Dobson, that's a long way of saying it was considered as part of the town's board process and in the town investment plan.
If I may, Chairman.
Yeah, go on, Maureen.
Thank you. I just go back to Matt. Thank you for that, Matt. But I just couldn't quite square what the Newark Towns Fund was all about if we were going to assist the relocation of the police station. I think if some of us, if I remember correctly, said at the time it was far too big, it wouldn't be used, it would never be filled. And yes, you're nodding your head in agreement, Chairman. And of course, we've been proved right. So why do we do these things? Why does anybody do these things when they really ought to think things through? So before we go off down a tangent, I want to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and we know what we're doing. And I hope, Matt, you're absolutely right. Smaller officers, more people out on the beat. That would be wonderful because that's what the public want. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, I think, Maureen. So, you know, there are an element of that to it. I think one of the benefits that I think with the police station co-located is the softer end. It's the relationships that's being built between not only the police and our antisocial behaviour team, but also with the senior executive within the council and the senior police officers, and also the leader and myself with the police officers. So if you remember, only a few years ago, you know, relations with the police wasn't brilliant. Yeah, and then we had a change of personnel come in from the police, and it's improved exponentially. And that's all down to the cooperation with the police and us, and the way we work together now. So this will help build on that, and I think it's a positive move forward. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I agree with Maureen that at the time that the police station was granted permission and built, some of us thought it was perhaps larger than necessary. But at least we had the foresight when we planned Castle House to come up with a design which was capable of expansion at the back, and we made that clear at the time. So certainly I welcome the co-location proposed. I say no more than that because it will be subject to a planning application, and who knows what the Independent Planning Committee will determine on that. A fabulous report. Absolutely delighted with this. If I have two regrets, the first is that it wasn't before us at our meeting on the 18th of November, and it wasn't before us at our meeting on the 13th of January, because for reasons best known to them, although we were in the first tranche of bids, there was been a lengthy delay in the announcement being made by the government. But everything comes to he who waits, Chairman, and I always knew that the bid from Newark was one of, if not the strongest one in the first tranche. And I think if Matt was ever allowed to say it, he might acknowledge that that is the feedback from the officials in the department. Very much welcomed.
Yeah, well said, my understanding is others tried to copy it. you know, other towns tried to copy it. So that's definitely testament to the work done by Matt and his team. And I think some of them have asked for your expertise, Matt, haven't they, or something? Well, let's blow your trumpet a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to be careful what I say. So yeah, we have been promoted as ones to follow, which is great. And we are in a cohort of all of the Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire teams, and we're all helping each other as part of that process. But obviously, given that we've been in front, we can share some of that knowledge and expertise. Yeah, well done, Matt. It is a great thing that the officers of this council have done to get us that money. It's a great bid, very exciting bid. And I think one of the things we just should really highlight as well is actually, you know, this isn't council led, it's business led. And we've got to remember that as well. You know, it's what the local community, because there was a consultation all taken into account, and the businesses and everybody involved, the education side, third sector were involved as well, you know, so the volunteer sector was also involved. So this is a great collaboration and making it all happen, and I'm really proud of it.
Can I carry on, Chairman?
Sorry, sorry, Roger.
No, you've just cut me off in my prime, but you know, I'm used to that. I was going to go on to say, Chairman, I welcome the table on page 31. I do note, however, that IASTI begins with the letter I. Castle Gatehouse, Construction College, Cultural Heart begin with the letter C. So they are listed there, I hope not necessarily in a pecking order, an order of priority, because you've just made the point that the initiative that led to the bid was, in fairness, jointly led by the leader of this council and a very prominent member of the business community in Newark and Sherwood. And that's as it should be, and I welcome that partnership. But there are many of the projects there which are being led and essentially are the district council projects. 25 million can sound an awful lot of money, but I think the intervention necessary to bring all of those projects forward is going to be greater than 25 million. And some of those are going to require capital investment by this council. So I hope when, instead of listing them there, and I'd have preferred to have seen them alphabetically for the reason I've just explained, that when we come to prioritise those, that this council is heavily involved in determining that prioritisation to ensure the money we are spending on behalf of our council taxpayers is going to be spent to maximum benefit. Thank you, Chairman.
Matt, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, it's just to come back on that. So I'm afraid that's my organisation of those projects. So don't read anything into that. And the reason I put the first two at the top is because they are both part of the Newark Gateway site. So they sit together, notwithstanding it is our land and our site. So we are heavily involved in those projects amongst the others. And there are various updates that I alluded to that will come via this committee and PNF, both in the June and September cycles, which will deal with those capital match requirements that you referred to, Councillor Blaney.
Thanks very much.
Lovely. I've got Councillor Lee Brazier next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is great, and I agree it'll be brilliant for the entire district, as long as we, going forward, we put pressure on for transport throughout the district, public transport especially, to be increased and for services to be more frequent and better accessible. From Ollerton on a morning, you can get a bus to Newark at 7 AM or at 7:30, and then you can't get another one until late in the afternoon, which causes a lot of issues if there's students wanting to attend Newark College and things like that for the new courses that are going to be on offer. So I think as long as a council in a whole going forward, we put that pressure for the services to be provided throughout the district, it's going to be beneficial to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. That's it. Okay, the recommendations then are on page 34. Seconder. Roger. Thank you. Anybody against? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item 10 is Mark Eyre, Beacon. Your Beacon.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've just...
Sorry, Mark, before you start, I don't think we've met, have we? I don't think you've met the committee yet, so welcome.
No,
welcome to the Economic Development Committee, and we look forward to this report.
Thank you very much. That's really appreciated. Yeah, just to introduce myself, I'm the new business manager for assets, facilities and car parks. I started at Newark and Sherwood in January this year, so very new to the organisation, but looking forward to working with you and with this committee. I've got.
Could I ask when the gentleman concerned puts himself up so we could see his face? It would be quite nice to see what he looks like.
I think it's a problem for connection, because I think most of us can see him, Maureen.
Oh, well, I can't. He's not on mine.
That's why I say it's your connection.
No, I don't think it is my connection. He's on a small one with a great big mark across his face, so you can't really see.
We can see him, Maureen. We can actually see him.
Oh, jolly good. As long as you can see him, Chairman, that's all that matters.
That's it. I'm the important one. Remember that. No, I'm only joking. Anyway, Mark, you can see what the committee's like. Off you go.
Yes, I'll start. It's an update report on the previous report submitted on Newark Beacon in last November. Just to go through a few points that I think are of note, but I'm happy to answer questions on anything else. We've had various staffing changes due to maternity leave, so temporary cover has been brought in for the assistant support manager who is on maternity leave, and we've also had a member of staff being on 0-hour contract to be able to deliver the cafe support and the centre marketing strategy. We've actually now got the cafe open for takeaways internally, and externally from the 29th of March takeaways will be available, which is good news. The essential works which have been carried out as of to date is the one of the offices has been converted for an overspill for Castle House, which has been very well utilised. We expect that to be increased when staff return to work over the next few months. And we've also had a telephone call system installed, which helps the virtual customers. There are plans for further works to be provided on the property, and that is an office conversion to create a tenant breakout space, improved shower and changing facilities, and also considering options for electrical vehicle charging points. In terms of income, the past year has been a real struggle, but I do actually think the centre has performed very well. We had a budget for virtual and office rent of 373,000 for this financial year. As of January, we have actually generated 219,000, but that is partially due to discounts which have been offered to tenants to keep them trading and keep them in the Beacon throughout the difficult period we've had. We've also suffered with regards to auxiliary income. We had budgeted for 106,000. Up until sort of our month 10 of our budget year, we've only achieved 14,000, which is due to the fact that you can't hold events, basically. Occupancy at the Beacon is it's not as high as we would want it to be. It's at 71%. However, we are getting interest and applications are coming in quite a lot over the past few weeks. I've noticed it, and we have actually got 3 new lettings which are being agreed, which is really good news. And finally, the customer satisfaction survey return was a really good result. I think it demonstrates how professional and customer service orientated the staff are. It was 54% return rate, and overwhelmingly 50% of respondents said that the Beacon was an excellent place to work. That's my presentation. I open it to questions.
Anybody got any questions or comments? I've got a couple of them. Oh, did I see somebody put the hand towards the screen? Yeah, go on, Neil.
Just a comment, really, that I think it's quite an achievement to have had such a high customer satisfaction in such a challenging time. I think with a focus on smaller businesses, it was always going to be more vulnerable to the current crisis. I think underlines the benefits of this actually being in the control of the council, because it has such strategic value to our local businesses, and we're in a position to continue to support and invest during this difficult time. So although it's obviously challenging and disappointing in terms of revenue, I think that the team have done an excellent job.
Thank you, Neil. I've got Pete Harris next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question about the monthly charges for the virtual support. I'm a little surprised at the £35 for minimal support, and just wondered if that could be reviewed. There are cheaper ways of doing that, albeit without the sort of support that the Beacon can provide. However, it does seem to be rather high compared to the competition.
I can look into that. I would say that it has been market tested. All of the sort of virtual options have been market tested to ensure competitiveness. We wouldn't want to outprice ourselves from the market, but I could demonstrate that there are sort of competition or competitors that are offering a similar comparable rate. We could look into that and show that.
I think you half said within your question there, though, Peter, is we don't. It's not just the virtual; it's the additional services that we provide, and I think that's the value, makes it the value for money. But yeah, we will definitely look into it. I've got Penny next, please.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mark, for that report. I think it's very encouraging. I was actually surprised. I thought occupancy would have gone down considerably more than it has. So I'm surprised but very pleased to see that it's held up reasonably well, and I think it's, you know, it goes tantamount to say that it's a well-run and a well-maintained facility. So I think it's an asset to the council. Thank you. Thank you,
Penny. Is that a legacy at hand, Peter, or have you got another question? Okay. One of the things I'm sort of hearing rumblings of, and I'm sure that you'll be looking at in the market magazines and things like that in terms of trends and what's expected to come forward. But one of the things I'm sort of hearing rumbles about is a lot of these big companies where they have massive apartment blocks of offices are looking to move out of there because they found that during COVID that actually there's better ways of working and it's a lot cheaper doing it other ways. And my view is that actually, rather than working from home, where they'd have to put individual broadband in, Wi-Fi or whatever into each home, they'd be looking at places like the Beacon where they can have a little office and have 2 or 3 of their staff in that live in that area and work from it. Are you finding that that's sort of, coming through the system now, or is that just sort of rumour?
We haven't seen it come through the system so much yet. We are seeing more companies basically sort of moving their location to the Beacon, but I do feel that that's an area to strengthen on. In terms of, we are reviewing the marketing in 2021, and the virtual package is reflective of that. I do think that the virtual package also complements the element of people wanting to maybe escape from working from home. That, the element of sort of being stuck in the same 4 walls all day. I think that really complements it. But we haven't seen sort of the creep away from having the corporate head office from the larger companies yet. It's something we can monitor, and I think we can target in our advertising.
Yeah, it might be worth it. The only reason I know is because I'm in a charity that has a lot of money to invest. Mm-hmm. We had an investment meeting last night, and that was what this pointed in the direction of investing the money in that sort of thing happening. So it may be worth having a look at. Really. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's pretty painless for you. Recommendation on page 50. Do I have a seconder, please? Ronnie? Thank you. Anybody against? I'll take that as unanimous then. Thank you very much. Okay, item 11, same for exempt. Right, just bear with me a second. Item 11, this is the places to ride. That's Sorry, that's Richard.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We submitted our Stage 2 application to Sport England British Cycling's Places to Ride scheme, and earlier this month we did receive initial notification of the outcome of that bid, but for reasons that are explained in the exempt appendix, we're not able to announce those publicly just yet.
Okay, are we all happy as a committee to leave the questions until the exempt item, because that's where the finances are there? Yeah. Anybody not happy with that? Okay, we'll move on from that then. Okay, item 12 is Matt Lamb, please. You're on mute, Matt.
Sorry, the new phrase. Yeah, I'll try again. So this is an update just on the A46 Newark Northern bypass, and you will be aware that the consultation rather unfortunately ran over the Christmas period. Was quite a finite consultation and required a number of workshops with various members and community groups. So firstly, thank you to all members and groups that engaged and were involved in that process. What I've done in the main report is just appended in full the council's submission to that process. So you may recall that this was it's described as a non-statutory consultation that was principally on two options, albeit when you dug under the detail, one could use a mix and match approach or indeed promote alternatives as part of that process. I'm not going to revisit taking the committee through each of the areas that we raised issues, concerns and information on, but it probably is useful for me to just know, I guess, 5 key items as part of that. So the first was that we were clear that our preferred solution, and indeed that aligned with Nottinghamshire County Council, Lincolnshire County Council and Midlands Connect, was that we needed grade separation of the cattle market roundabout. So that was the first issue that we made clear. The second was that we wanted to be clear that any scheme didn't prejudice the reasonable operation or in due course the grade separation of the Newark Flat rail crossing. The third issue we raised was around traffic management and the ability of this scheme to help deliver the Newark Southern Link Road early, such that you have an A46A1 connection to help with the overall traffic management part of the town. Fourthly, we raised the concerns around particularly Winthrop and the impacts upon the community there. And then fifthly, which is more of an engagement point, we raised some concerns and frankly disappointment with some of the consultation that took place. And we asked that that was learnt from for the future, such that we have better, earlier, and more robust engagement as we move forward. As part of that now, Highways England have set in place what they are referring to as technical meetings with the various stakeholders. And in fact, the first one of those happened today. So I was in attendance, as were other officers on behalf of the District Council, Lincolnshire County Council, Nottinghamshire County Council were involved in that process. It's very much a one-way information sharing piece at the minute, but I do hope in due course that becomes two-way and we can continue to have that debate and discussion. So those meetings will now take place on a monthly basis for at least the next 7 months, but I'll give updates as and when we can as part of that process. I don't yet have a timetable for when the consultation replies will be published. So you're aware with every consultation, an organisation like Highways England will typically then publish them, summarise them and give key views. My expectation is that that will happen in the next 2 to 3 months, but I'm afraid I don't have the confirmation to give you yet in terms of that timetable. So forgive me, without going through the full detail, hopefully that's a useful summary for the headlines that we wanted to raise and that we want that engagement moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Okay, questions and comments, please. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Matt, and a very big thank you to Matt, to Matthew Norton, and perhaps especially to Tim Dawson, who did a lot of the heavy lifting, I believe, for the comprehensive nature of the report. I was grateful to Councillor Linda Dales for organising for me to have a conversation with the Think Again group in Winthorpe. And I've had feedback from them after our consultation response went in of how appreciative they were of that and how comprehensive it was, and highlighting concerns that they shared with us. We have, of course, now gone into a period where, as Matt has rightly said, Highways England are considering those responses, but we haven't gone entirely into a sort of period of non-activity, because some of us had a note only 10 days ago that men in high-vis jackets, and forgive me, I shouldn't be sexist, ladies as well, I'm sure, in high-vis jackets, could be seen on site over the coming weeks as groundworks, ground exploration, if you like, is being done. And I think it is crucially important, and I made this point to Highways England in a subsequent meeting I was invited to attend with the local MP, that if there are going to be people wandering the potential route, that it's crucial that they advise the parish council locally and the Think Again group, contact details of which they've got, because the last thing Highways England will want to do after perhaps a rocky start to the consultation first time round is to set hares running. And I was grateful to Highways England for actually ensuring that people who needed to know were alerted to the fact and could then spread that information out. Matt talks of a monthly meeting. I was a bit concerned when he said over the next 7 months, because as we are only a matter of days away from April, on my calculation, that could take it to November. And of course, Highways England were talking of completing the next stage, or undertaking the next stage of consultation in the summer. If they know that November is going to be a particularly hot one, then they probably know more than the Met Office at present. So I hope that we will be putting pressure on them through those monthly meetings, Matt, to get the second consultation underway as soon as practicable. And the importance of that is because the project here has already slipped from RIS 2, which completes at the end of 2025, into RIS 3, with a probable opening not before 2027. If I'm honest, I think that's optimistic. And if I hear that we are going to have another 7 monthly sessions, I become more pessimistic. And I think 2027 has every potential to be later than that, and we must seek to hold Highways England. The importance of this scheme cannot be underestimated. And the fact that we are talking of the Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, we've got Midlands Connect, Midlands Engine for Growth, East Midlands Councils, all backing this because of its regional and national importance. Let's keep the pressure on Highways England. Let's not give them any excuse, pandemic or whatever, to drag their feet. I don't think they are, but we need to keep them on their toes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Roger. And Maureen?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, through you, Chairman, to Matt Lamb. Thank you for the report, and thank you for the report that you eventually presented. Yes, the Think Again group were very appreciative of it, and so was I, and I'm very appreciative of the County Council's report too, and Kevin Sharman, who is the lead officer at the county. I would like all of you to know that the Think Again group are a very active group of residents who have, as I told you at the meeting, which you all were very quiet on, yes, with the exception of the chairman, you were very quiet and you didn't argue and you didn't pass comment. Neither did you, Roger Blaney, not once. So
Chairman, through you, can I ask which meeting? Because I've attended many meetings, very few of them with Councillor Dobson. Can I ask which meeting she's referring to, please?
Referring to the last economic regeneration meeting, when I brought it up about the lack of consultation time. And the chairman quite rightly said to me, oh, this is just the first one, Councillor Dobson. We've got a second bite of the cherry. That was Councillor Girling's comment. Anyway, I would like you to know that this group are really active. They've got engineers involved and they are coming up with another option themselves, an option that would be absolutely superb and helpful to the village and also to Highways England. So with luck, people will listen. Karen Green has accepted the consultation or the documents she sent out were not good. She's accepted that and she's said, and she's apologised because she realised sending them out just before Christmas and the New Year was not a good thing to do. So I just want all of you who sit on this Economic Regeneration Committee to know that there is work afoot. It will look good, I'm pretty certain. Fingers crossed that Highways England will enjoy or like what they're going to put forward, and it will meet the criteria and the finances. Now, if Roger is saying he's concerned about it being put back, all I will say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is I don't mind it being put back a year or even 2 years, as long as it's done properly. That's what I want to see, and that's what I think all of us want to see. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Maureen. Anybody else got anything to say before I sum up? Okay, right. I'm just going to say this, Maureen. Yeah, the discussion at the last meeting was about accepting the fact that there was a consultation, and it wasn't an official consultation, and that we should use it to put in our objections and our comments and actually take into account what the people in and around Newark had said. I think the report that's gone to the Highways England is a prime example of the fact that actually we have listened. We've put a good report in, which actually pleased everybody. So it's not always about making a noise in a meeting. It's about what happens actually afterwards and what we actually do. So we have worked extremely hard to make sure everybody's point of view was put to that consultation, and that's what the report reflects. And I think it was a bit bad of you to try and imply that everybody in this committee sat on their hands and wasn't bothered about it, because they are. Okay, and right. Recommendations are on page 55. Can I have a seconder, please? I'll have you, Roger, as a seconder for this. Thank you. Anybody against? I'll take that as unanimous then. Thank you very much. Okay, item 13, it's the Matt Lamb show.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman. I'll give you a break of voice, hopefully, at some point. So this is a report that actually I'd like to have brought to you much earlier, perhaps a year ago. It's the work that we've been doing. And again, my huge thanks to the members that have been involved with this process as well, particularly Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Lloyd, who have worked closely with us to actually appraise the developers that were interested in this site and to be able to select a preferred developer to get us to the current point. Without rehearsing all of the detail, you will recall, I'm sure, the setup that we're trying to do differently here, given the very, in many ways, painful history of this site. So what we're looking to do now is we've now signed terms with a preferred developer on the basis that they now need to seek relevant consent. So that's planning and listed building consent. In doing so, work with the community to build that up, to submit that to the regulatory process. So again, picking up Councillor Blaney's point earlier, there are some members on this committee that will wear a regulatory hat as part of that process. And then in due course, for the assuming an approved scheme, that when that is implemented, that is done so on a license. So in other words, the site is leased over the period of the build to such a degree that we can then monitor progress through a clerk of works, we can monitor quality, and we can ensure that the developer only buys this at the agreed purchase price when it is complete. So a completely different way of doing the development, but hopefully one that will see a successful outcome. I'm aware that as a council, we've been here before, so I'm not yet going to promise a successful outcome, but hopefully this is the start of that journey to deliver, and we'll bring forward regular updates as we do it. So brief update, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I mean, you know, this is a prime example of how complex some things which you think are really easy can turn out to be, hasn't it? You know, the black and white brigade out there that think all we have to do as a council is wave a wand and it happens. And this is a prime example of how difficult that can be. Right, I've got Councillor Brailsford first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you. I welcome this report. It's great to see that progress has been made, and I'm looking forward to seeing progress being made with what is an iconic building. So, yeah, it's just my thanks, really. Great news, really positive. Thank you very much.
Okay, before I go on, I've just been asked a question, and it might be worth, Matt, if you could give a bit of advice. I know we've not got a legal officer here. We've got people who are on planning. Yeah, and is there an issue with them voting, or can they speak on it and vote on it? What's your view?
No, there isn't, Chairman. So what we're doing here is approving the principle, noting the principle of a developer bringing forward a site and working up a scheme to come to the planning committee. You've not got a scheme before you that you're making comment upon, so you're not prejudiced in any way.
Okay, are we all, are those on the planning committee all happy with that? Okay, I've got Lee Brazier next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, on behalf of the residents of Ollerton Village, I would like to say thank you to everyone that's been involved in this. I know from the meeting that Ollie did with myself and others back in 2019, where he presented the building in its current state and what was hoped for it. A lot's gone off, and unfortunately the time frame that Ollie was initially hoping for has long gone out of the window. But yeah, I'm just glad to see this going back to some form of glory. After all, it is the entrance to the centre of the universe that is Ollerton. So, you know, it's what we as members for Ollerton hope to see come to fruition in the not so distant future. Thank you.
Can I assure you, Lee, you are not the only one that wants this to come to fruition. I think everybody on this committee will be really, really, really pleased that it comes to fruition, and that, you know, as you say, Ollerton, which is the centre of your universe, gets something that deserves, which is iconic.
Everyone's universe, Keith. Everyone's universe.
Yeah, of course. Did you want to come back on that, Matt, at all? Was there anything to respond to now? I've got
no,
Neil Mitchell there first. Go on, Matt, if you want to say anything.
No, sorry, Chair. I was just going to say there's nothing else, and yeah, even as officers, we're desperate for this to work. So yeah, we'll do everything we can to hold feet to the fire.
Well done, Neil.
I just wanted to give my thanks to Matt. I mean, obviously, it would be great for these things to happen sooner rather than later, but I'm actually really pleased that we've taken the time to make sure that the right safeguards are put in place. And I'd like to thank Matt for his diligence in thinking of all the possible ways this could go wrong, and the safeguards that we could put in place to make sure that as a council, we're not left in the lurch and we have a way of then recovering and going back with another developer. I've relayed those safeguards and explanations to the local town council, and they very much appreciate them as well, because I think it built trust with them that we're taking it as seriously as we possibly can, and we're being cautious while trying to stay ambitious. One question, it mentions in there around kind of cell contributions and Section 106 and things like that, which we had talked about in the past. As part of the working group, we also talked about the fact that any receipts that do come back from this would be reinvested in Ollerton in some form, but that was left, you know, understandably vague at that point. it would be nice as this starts to firm up and we hopefully move into the final lease phase, we put some more thought into exactly how that does come back then to the local community.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor. So the resolution remains, and there's no intention to change that. That any capital receipt received minus obviously fees will be made available for future projects. I'll probably come on to that when I give the funding update, but I see that very much as capital match as part of a much bigger aspiration and submission to government.
Okay, anybody else? Maureen, sorry, Maureen.
You're not the only one, not Ollerton members, want to see this happen, as the chairman has said. There's been some of us that have been on this authority a long time, and we've been looking at Ollerton Hall for a long time. Thank you, all of you that have been putting all this effort in, but I'm also going to say well done, Matt, for being open and honest. We are going to try and make this work. We've always tried to make it work every time. So fingers crossed it doesn't go wrong this time, and fingers crossed we get Ollerton Hall back up and running and it looking like Ollerton Hall, because you're absolutely right. It's the gateway on the roundabout. Every time we've been on a site visit on the bus, I've looked at it and said, are we ever going to get this done? So I'm really delighted that we're going to, at long last, fingers crossed, get it done. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Maureen. I think that's it. Okay, recommendations, page 98. Can I have a seconder, please? Penny? Oh, no, Lee. You can be the seconder on this. Lee Brazier. Yep. Thank you. Anybody against? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us then on to item 14, and guess who it is? Matt Lamb.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman. I'm afraid I'm going to teach you all some new acronyms that you're going to love to hate as we move forward over the coming months. And this is actually on the back of the Chancellor's announcements again. So you'll have seen the paper, and I'll explain some of the detail of it. But what I won't be in a position to do at this meeting is to tell you what the schemes will look like. But of course, we can move that and roll that forward as we move through. So you'll have seen that there are 3 funds that have been published. The first is the Community Renewal Fund, or the CRUF, as it seems to be being called in the industry. The second is the Levelling Up Fund, or the LUF. And the third is the Community Ownership Fund, the COF. So I'm just going to give you a brief background on each of those so that you can set this in context. So the Community Renewal Fund, you'll have picked up, is a largely revenue-based scheme. So when I say largely, there is an assumption that this will be a 90% revenue-based scheme. It largely covers the areas of what we know as skills, education and employment. So whether that be programme support, specific sectoral support, specific support for young people, specific support for retraining, the whole gambit is covered by this report. Now, a number of priority areas, so priority 1 areas have been identified, and within Nottinghamshire, that is ourselves, Mansfield and Bassetlaw. And we have an ability by the 18th of June, which just so happens to be at least just after the next committee, but sadly prior to the next Policy and Finance Committee, hence Councillor Girling's point earlier, the need to make some quick decisions outside of committee cycles. What that fund does is allows us to submit for up to £3 million project for our area, or projects. It is open to other funding providers to do also, notwithstanding, we are looking to coordinate this with the lead authority. So you've probably seen that in a 2-tier structure place, County Council take the lead, and they actually are arbiters of assessing the bids. before then going on to submit them to government. So we have now started a live conversation, which is ourselves, Mansfield, Bassett Law and the counter. And we are looking to pool our thinking such that there is, if you like, that pre-understanding. I won't go as far as to say pre-support because I can't prejudge what the county might do, but pre-understanding of how all that will develop. So I'll deal with that offline through a number of you to be able to bring that forward. The next fund is the Levelling Up Fund. This is a largely capital programme, and many in the industry are describing this almost as a Towns Fund process. So it's not Towns Fund process, but describing it in those terms might help you to understand it. So the rules of the game for that particular fund are we can submit a proposal per constituent MP constituency area. So we can submit a proposal for Newark and a proposal for Sherwood. And that package of proposals can be for projects, interventions and schemes that are for up to £20 million. There is a round one that has the same deadline as the CRUF, so that's the 18th of June. And that round one is for, and again, forgive me using the term because I don't like it myself, shovel-ready projects that can spend in 2021-22 and exceptionally beyond that. Up to 223 and exceptionally into 23-24. So that is the round one submissions. There is a further round to follow, and the government are clear that if you're a round two submission, it won't affect your ability to succeed, in that it will be much like the cohorts with the Towns Fund. So you're assessed on your merits against what you submit relative to the business case, the funding match and those various other things. So the only project I would recommend is shovel ready is actually on the Newark side of that equation, which would be the Southern Link Road. So my suggestion is that would be included as a round one submission, which is good to go and that builds upon the Newark Town Investment Plan. My suggestion on the Sherwood side, and we will develop this through, will be we need to work through the governance, the evidence base, and be as robust as a submission as we were for Newark to make sure we absolutely maximise what I am sure, without prejudging this, will be very, very close to a maximum bid as part of the process for 20 million. My additional suggestion outside of this meeting would be that that process I've just described, so each constituency area of a district being able to submit an up to £20 million proposal, I think that the county also have an ability, in addition, to submit a proposal between 20 and 50 million if it is a transport project. And there are a number of transport projects, one in particular in the West, that I feel would be prime for that submission. So that's a lobbying piece, and that's an ongoing discussion piece. So any dual hatters now or in the future need to be mindful of that. That I think that is a submission that we make clear is our requirement, and it won't surprise you to know I've already done that on behalf of the council with county colleagues. And then the final fund, this is the one that there's least detail on, I'm afraid, so I can't go into much on for you, but this is the issue of intervening where there are community assets at risk, and the ability of the community, and that's defined in terms of the organisations involved, being able to purchase such assets on a match funded basis up to a maximum of £250,000. But again, some of the detail on that is not yet there, but it is something that colleagues across the organisation will need to do work on. So I'd love to be able to tell you that all of that is well defined, but given the publication on the 3rd of March and given the committee cycles, I can't go beyond that at the current time. But hopefully that's helpful as a quick synopsis.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Can you just do a bit of clarification for me? So on, I can't remember if it's a Luff, Duff or Fluff, whichever one it is. the one where you said it has to be done in terms of a bit like the town's fund bid, is that also then in respect that you bring in the businesses and third sector and all that lot to get it, like we involved at the town board, or is it just the process that's the same?
No, it will also be the involvement of the private sector and across our communities. So yeah, that's why I think we need to get the evidence base right before submitting something.
Okay, right. Okay, Neil.
It's obviously very, very interesting, potentially very exciting. It seems like some of these could be a nice complement to the Newark Towns Fund. So we have investment outside of Newark for the rest of the district. I'm aware of how much effort went into the Newark Towns Fund bid and the ongoing effort into the projects that are, still being developed. Is there a danger that we don't have the resources to devote to these funding applications and we risk missing out on opportunities because we stretch so thin? Is there something we need to think about of getting either extra resources in to help the bids, or are we comfortable that actually we can cover all of these in addition to the existing Newark Town stuff?
I think you've primed him, Matt. I think you've primed him. Do you want to reply to that?
I'll take the donation after.
Yeah, that's most appreciative. That's most appreciative, Neil. No, it won't surprise you to know I've already had discussions within the organisation at a professional officer cohort level, and that will come to the Policy and Finance Committee, because obviously they're the ones that sign off the budget, that absolutely we need more resource. I genuinely believe this is a real opportunity for the Sherwood area of the district. I genuinely believe we can show that we can deliver and show we can be successful. And I think we'll be equally, if not more ambitious with some of the projects and thinking that we already are aware of in that part of the university for Councillor Brazier. So from that point of view, there will be an ask coming. Which I do need to discuss with our Section 151 officer still, albeit he's aware of it. But yeah, there will be additional asks coming for resource, because as we move to delivery for Newark Towns Fund, let's make sure that we get receipt of funds right for Sherwood, and hopefully then move into delivery phase there also.
Yeah, this is great news for Sherwood, actually. Roger.
Yes, echo all that's been said so far, and certainly totally endorse what Neil's just said. Can I just check, Matt, that it says here quite rightly, local authority can submit one bid for every MP whose constituency lies wholly or partly within their boundary. Does that mean there can be 3 separate bids in a constituency MP's boundaries if there are 3 separate authorities that in part are in that constituency? And obviously I'm thinking in respect of the Member of Parliament for Newark, part of whose constituency is in Rushcliffe, part of whose constituency is in Bassetlaw, or the MP for Sherwood, part in Newark and Sherwood, part in
Ashfield.
And Gedling as well. Well, certainly Gedling. So that's my question there. And just an observation. Yeah, I know it's Newark again, but if Newark meets the criteria and only Newark has got something that's shovel ready, the SLR, which you mentioned, dovetails very nicely into the report we just had on the A46, because there were 3 red lines in that report, one of which was to mitigate the impact of the construction period on the traffic disruption in the Newark area, and having the Southern Link Road completed before construction starts on the upgrade of the A46 would help that. So I hope we are building that into the bid that we'll be working on to show the synergy between the £500 million that the government has indicated they are minded to spend on the A46 upgrade as well. So let's link those 2 things in there. So back to my question, if I may, Matt.
Yeah, if I may, through you, Chair. So two comments to make there. Firstly, on that issue of the link road and a round one fund, and I should make clear, actually, you can only make one submission for the lifetime of the fund. So one for the Newark patch, one for the Sherwood patch. In terms of the link road, you're absolutely right. I think, again, stars are aligned, if I use that language, in terms of we have Homes England, Highways England, the LEP, ourselves, a developer, all working to say this levelling up fund makes sense for Newark, let's unlock it. So I think that's fine and relatively straightforward, that we will make sure we capture all of those things. You are correct. Our understanding is, and I think you're right, both of them have 3 in their patches, are allowed to have submissions from each of them for the up to 20 mil. And I would like, because I would say this one time, that we have 120 mil for Newark, 120 mil for Sherwood, and 120 to 50 mil for transport projects from the County Council. That's where I'd like to think we could end.
Excellent. Matthew Skinner next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I appreciate this report was produced many days ago. One thing that came to light that I've read today was an amount of money which seems small actually, but significant in my opinion in comparison to some of the numbers raised on this report. And that was a ready to reopen fund that was around £108,000 that's been allocated to this authority. Just for the avoidance of doubt, Chairman, could I just ask, is that in addition to these amounts that are referenced in this report, or are they contained within one of these funds?
It's in addition, Matthew. It's in addition.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, the recommendation on page 102. Would you like to second this, Neil? Yeah, so seconded by Neil Mitchell. Anybody against? I take that as unanimous then, thank you very much. That takes us on to item 15, which is an urgent item. Brian Rawlinson.
Oh, good evening, everybody.
Thanks for your patience, Brian.
Yeah, no problem at all, Chair. So last year, we applied for funding from central government for EV charge points. And the way we did this...
Brian, can I just stop you, please? Can you put your camera on when you're speaking? Yeah, then it's a bit more engaging with the committee, please. That's better. That's better. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So we applied for funding from central government for further electric vehicle charging points throughout the district. So we put forward a number of different sites, and from that application, 3 sites came back that were approved. So following approval of these sites, we have now had an offer through from central government to say that these sites have been accepted, and we are in the process very shortly of starting the EV charge point work. Edwinstowe unfortunately decided to decline the offer, and that is due to really they've got some issues with their occupancy levels on their car parks at the moment, some of the parking issues. So that's something for the future for Edwinstowe. Disappointing for some areas. Ollerton, for instance, on this occasion didn't meet approval, but fortunately there's a further fund available for the coming year, and I'm very, very hopeful that Ollerton will this time be accepted. That application will go forward within the next 4 weeks, and obviously I will let members know how we go with that application. We'll also be looking at any other areas. The one thing to bear in mind with this fund is it's the on-street resident charging scheme. So ideally this is for areas on street. So it will assist areas in built-up areas where we've got, for instance, flats, apartments that may not have their own driveway, and so the only way they can charge is on street. And the way we get it on car parks is if there is no on-street parking available. So there's restrictions on the streets. And this is where we've been able to actually secure funding onto surface car parks, in the fact that they're very, very close to built-up areas. So, for instance, Newark Marketplace, we know there's apartments there, and there's apartments being built on London Road Car Park, and various other areas. Edwinstowe, again, they've got built-up areas and not necessarily available on-street parking where they could actually install these charge points. So this is, again, puts residents in a very, very good position, rather than them saying, you know, we just can't get an electric vehicle because we can't charge it anywhere. They will now be able to go and purchase an electric vehicle and charge on these areas. So that's really great news for the district, and I'm hoping that we do secure further charge points through this scheme.
Thank you, Brian. Right, I've got Roger Blaney first, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Brian. This is an urgency item. The decision's been taken, and normally we just note them. But I'm absolutely delighted that Brian is with us this evening, because it enables me to put on record my thanks for the work he's done to secure this money, not just for Newark, but for Southwell, and indeed for keeping Peter Harris and myself engaged and informed in respect of the funds that have come through to Southwell. It's an excellent result of a lot of hard work. As Brian rightly says, it'll benefit those residents as we move through to a situation where electric vehicles become more the norm than the novelty. Those residents who don't have off-street parking but have access to a private or local car park nearby, where one of these points will enable them to charge up. It is, of course, a situation that normal car parking charges will apply in addition to the charging point, but it enables those residents to now consider having an electric vehicle when previously they may not have been able to. So, Brian, personally, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Roger. I've got Penny Rainbow next, please. I've seen you, Maureen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, can I also associate myself with the thanks that Roger's just given to Brian? I speak to him as well, and he has been incredibly, it's been really useful, and he's helped tremendously with getting the installation in Southwell. They're going in the Bramley car park at Southwell, which is at the back of the library, which will assist hopefully people that live on King Street. There are a lot of flats up there that as Brian's just adhered to, you know, they can't have that facility. So it might encourage, well, it will encourage more of our residents to have electric cars, which is obviously a plus. But also, just to remind members that at the moment, some cars haven't got a fantastic range. So when people are planning a journey, they plan it around charge points. And, you know, if they can see, oh, we've got some charge points at Southwell, you know, it's a plus for us. At the very least they'll do is go into a coffee shop and buy a coffee. So it all helps our economy, you know, that they can visit the Minster, go to the Minster shop, and it has a tremendous knock-on effect. So, yeah, it's super. So thanks very much, Brian. I look forward to them being installed very shortly.
Thank you, Penny. Nothing to really say apart from thank you yet, Brian. I'll bring you in when there's a question. Peter Harris, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to endorse Roger's and Penny's statements of thank you. Just to point out that the Bramley car park is actually not owned by the town council, it's owned by the county council, managed by the town council, but we have got their support. There are issues with regard, I mean, the signage will be something that the town council working with the county council will incorporate. We have agreed that 2 of the 8 slots will be electric vehicle only, and I think that will have to be enforced by the enforcement agency, the county council by the Park Enforcement Board, and the other 6 other slots will be for both EV and for fossil fuel vehicles until the demand for EV slots becomes greater. So we're going to review that. But there are additional costs because of signage. And I think, Chair, that Brian has worked with the town council to ensure that the car parking orders, which are about to go through, will say that, because obviously what we don't want is fossil fuel vehicles blocking the EV only vehicles slots, which is a source of complaint from other places. I would point out that already, having heard this, one resident has considered changing their vehicle to to electric vehicle. At the moment, they do not have any other facilities, so that's really quite encouraging. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Peter. I've got Maureen next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Brian. Good report. Could I ask that you seriously consider Appleton Gate car park and Lovers Lane car park next time? Purely and simply because Sleaford Road is an absolute nightmare. Nobody's got anywhere to park. So if we're going to encourage people to go into electric cars, then they need something, and Appleton Gate would be good, and Lovers Lane and all Curry and Merrick and all round there is an absolute nightmare for anybody to have any charge point. So there is a private car park down there, but if you could consider them, I think that would be worthwhile. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, there's a question there then, Brian, if you'd like to come in now.
Yes, one point I will say there, Maureen, is Appleton Gate has got a fast charge point. That was in our first level of EV charge points that we brought in. But I do totally agree with you. The Merrick Road area, Lovers Lane, is an area that I think will certainly be put on to the next application because I think there's room there away from the restrictions where we could potentially put an electric vehicle charge point actually on street. So all those areas will be looked at the next lot of applications in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just come back and say, are the people on Sleaford Road aware of this for the Appleton Gate car park? Would we have notified them, Brian?
I don't think any notifications would have gone through to residents on, through the doors. But what I intend to do is through our comms team is really push for what we've already got in place to let residents know. Also, our tourism team will be working on letting obviously tourists that are coming into town know that we've already got these facilities in place with new ones coming in. The other thing is, like that's already been mentioned already, is anybody with an electric vehicle will have a mapping system and they'll know where all the electric vehicle charging points are. So when we get visitors that are looking for a place to come, whether it's just a day trip when things ease, or in later times if they want to come for a few days to the district, they then know that they've got somewhere where they can charge safely. We've also got the secure car park safety accreditation for a further year. And again, all these add up to giving that customer a good place to park. The availability of charging points all helps for what we're offering our local public, plus all the visitors that we have coming into Newark and Sherwood.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Are you happy with that response? I've got your hand up, Peter. Is it a legacy, or you want to ask another question?
Can I ask another question, Chair, please?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Brian. I just wondered if we have got a relationship with BP Chargemaster, whether we could give some pressure to them to work with other charging systems, because at the moment I think there are 5 different apps that you need to carry around and 2 cards if you're going to use all of the systems available. And I find, well, I do not own an EV vehicle because of range issues at the moment. However, a friend of mine who does find it very frustrating that there are so many different systems and indeed different plugs, believe it or not. So you've got to carry 3 different plugs around as well, although I think there's increasing commonality. But certainly the 5 apps and the 3 plastic cards that have to be carried around is ridiculous. And I just hope that there's some commonality can be suggested to BP Chargemaster, which may or may not be the largest provider. However, the fact is that it's very frustrating for users.
Thanks for that, Peter. Totally agree. You got anything to come back on that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, throughout the last year, I've had regular contact with BP Chargemaster. They are, I would say, the biggest organisation at the moment looking through EV charge points. They always come up really with all the answers whenever I'm asking, and they're very, very cooperative. So I will pass on all these thoughts. I think with it still being relatively new, the industry has got to sort of move towards having a single type of lead, for instance. But I think that'll be some time in coming. But when you think that, you know, when it seems like it's a long way away, 10 years, when obviously people can, you know, the industry can no longer sell petrol or diesel vehicles new anyway, then I think, you know, things have got to happen very, very quickly. I think the good thing for Newark and Sherwood, especially after what we've already got put in place for this round of EV charge points, plus potential for what's happening in the next application, I think the district will be in a very, very good starting position in comparison to other areas.
Thank you. No more comments yet. Brian, I think you should be commended for the hard work that you put into this to get those charging points around the district. And I'd like to personally thank you for what you're doing, and well done, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Thank you.
Okay, that's just for noting anyway. So that takes us now on to item 16. Because it's confidential items coming up, that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and the public be excluded from the meeting during discussion of this item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Do I have a seconder? Penny, all in favour? Anybody against? Right, Peter Harris is against, thank you. Okay, that then takes us on to item 17,